Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, welcome back. Chase Thomas podcast, taping this on a Friday afternoon. The legend, the man himself, Rusty Mansell, is here of DawgsHQ 929 The Game. Rusty, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Are you feeling a little bit nervous with the how tomorrow might go a little bit? Is there any part of you that's like, hey, Georgia fans, let's not count our chickens before they hatch just a little bit. Tennessee hasn't lost a home game since Georgia in 2021.
Well, I've been around for a long time, so I'm not nervous. But Georgia should be. You know what I mean? I think they should take. I think that the Georgia fan base should be, because I've said this from basically since last year. You know, I've been around this rivalry for a long time. I understand the pulse. I kind of know what happened last year. Tennessee ranked number one, a lot of momentum. That loss kind of sent them spiraling, you know, into the rest of the season. And this one of those games, I don't care. You have that circled. And I think it was 2003. Georgia played LSU, and they went down there and got beat, man. And then they got beat again in the SEC championship. And LSU had to come back to Athens the next year, and Georgia was waiting. I mean, Georgia was waiting on LSU. I mean, and I don't even know what their record was, but I can tell you, I knew Georgia was going to play that day, and they beat the brakes off LSU. So I understand when you have a game circled. You look at Georgia 2007 when they beat Florida, and then you see Urban Meyer. They were waiting on Georgia in 2008. So this is Tennessee. The Tennessee has, no matter what has happened up until this point, they have wanted to play this game. Their fan base has wanted this game. Their team has wanted this game. If you're Georgia, I've said it all week, man. This is a game. It better have your damn attention. I was talking to Randy McMichael, former Georgia tight end, this week, and he said, Rusty, this is their toughest game. This is Georgia's toughest game, and I stand by that. And I kind of agree with him. I think this is now. Do I think Georgia's going to win this game? I did predict Georgia to win this game, but I see a lot of Georgia fans just like, hey, we're going to go up there and just throttle Tennessee. Yeah. I would be shocked if that happened.
I would too. I mean, Heupel, it's interesting too. He's 7-0, coming off a double-digit loss at Tennessee to this point. I think a lot of folks, if you don't watch every game and you're not like on the pulse like me here in Knoxville and like see this team week in, week out and know Heupel, like I understand it's a cliche to say like hates to lose. Heupel is a competitive guy. And I think there is something to the response where if he gets embarrassed on the national stage or things really go awry, he's pissed. Like he really takes it personally and does not like to see stuff like that. And I believe in the response. And it's like, hey, this was a team that was up 2 touchdowns on Alabama on the road at one point going into that. Like this is a team that the best version of Tennessee is still the second best team, I think, in the SEC. The problem is you see that every now and then. Like you just this year, more so than last year, it's just the nature of the beast. When you lose a quarterback to the NFL draft, when you lose 2 NFL wide receivers, when you have that kind of drop off, it's just not easy. You know this, like in recruiting, it's just not that it's not a plug and play situation where you're like, all right, we lost our 4-star of the draft. We'll plug in this 4-star and we just keep this train moving. It doesn't really work like that in practicality. I just look at it as, look, Georgia is playing really good ball, but I think a lot of people are just looking at what happened at Missouri last weekend. And it's like, okay, they're reeling. Tennessee's reeling. I just think Tennessee flushes this stuff, and they're a totally different team at home. We've seen it for the last 3 years. They get up. Nealon's going to be rocking. Like you said, they've had it circled all year long. I don't think that it's the thing to me that will ultimately define this game. I don't know if you agree with it. Tennessee is 0-3, and Jalen Wright averages around 3 yards per carry. They're undefeated when he averages 7 yards per carry or more. So if Tennessee is able to establish the run at home, if they are able to run on Georgia and not put them in a situation where they have to rely on a lot of experienced wideouts because they're extremely banged up in the receiver room, I think they have a shot. And it kind of just looks like a souped up version of what Auburn did, right? Like that's, I think, the best case scenario is you have a souped up, more talented version of that.
I think it's simple. I mean, we could sit here and, people get paid a lot more money than you and I to talk. But if Tennessee can't run the football, they don't win.
They can't win.
They're not going to win. So I went back and watched the Missouri game. And here's one thing I'll say about the Missouri game from the Tennessee side. They had 2 costly turnovers. They had 2 very costly turnovers that put that game into a different score. Now, I will say this from the Missouri side, they whipped Tennessee up front. They whipped their guards. They whipped their center. They were able to control that with 3 down linemen. So I wonder if Georgia looks at that and says, that is going to be a light box. Our guys have got to do that, because that's one thing I noticed with Missouri. I actually went back and watched that game this morning, the offensive possessions of Tennessee again. And they got whipped up front, but they did have 2 calls. So that turnover right there and deep in Missouri territory, obviously, changed a lot of things. So that game could have been a little bit different. It's always ifs and buts, but again, just looking at that Missouri score, you didn't really watch the game closely, how different that could have been. All the credit in the world of Missouri, because I watched Missouri. I stood on the sideline 2 weeks ago. That Schrader is a damn bowling ball. I mean, that dude, he's built like a damn igloo cooler. You know what I mean? And you get your arms around him. He had 120 on Georgia. Yeah. So, you look at this game, and can Georgia offensively, they're going to stress Tennessee, especially with Bowers back now. You look at Ladd McConkey, you look at Oscar Delp, that receiving core is going. Carson Beck seems to be kind of, peaking at the right time. So I think that is absolutely the biggest key, man, is Georgia in some one-on-one situations, because Tennessee spread you out so much defensively. And then you look at, can they stop the run? Because I know that Tennessee, I can't even imagine, historically, everybody knows what Georgia does, Bloody Tuesday, knock the piss out of each other. But I guarantee you that Tennessee had some physical-ass practices this week in preparation for this, and coming off that game at Missouri. That didn't set well with Heupel, as you said, and probably their team. And look, they know what's at stake. Georgia can tie the all-time winningest SEC streak ever. And that's not something you want somebody to walk off the field going, man, just beat us, and they, tied a record for all-time wins at SEC and consecutive wins.
Yeah, and you have a lot of big-time recruits on campus this weekend for Tennessee. You got Jordan Seaton and company. We'll see if Kam Mikell is able to make it in, and I'll ask. I'm curious about him in a second. I'll ask you, but I think when it comes to, like you said, with the practicing and what this week's looked like for both sides, very physical on both fronts. I'm curious because you've watched Georgia up close more than most this year, Rusty. From my vantage point on the outside looking in, I think one of the things that really killed Tennessee, because they don't have deep dropbacks, like it's not one of those situations where it's one step, quick read, first read, make a move, and it's just quick decision making. And that's been the problem with Joe versus Hendon over the first 3 years here, is that Joe he'll misfire. You can see that he doesn't know what to do. He'll panic a little bit. He's just not decisive all the time. I mean, the best version of Joe is still pretty good. It's just you never really know. And he was actually really solid the last 3 weeks before the Mizzou collapse. But the defensive line and Jalen Carter, they were sending doubles at him last year, and it just didn't matter. Like Jerome Carbon was just getting eaten alive by Jalen Carter. And then the year prior, you have Jordan Davis coming in here and guys like that. They don't seem to have those same kind of game wreckers in the interior that can give Tennessee those same kind of problems up front. Is that fair? Because if that's the case, I do wonder what that means for Tennessee versus Georgia versus what we've seen the last 2 years.
They definitely don't have a Jalen Carter. It's like I tell every year, quit trying to ask me who's the next Roquan Smith, because it's just that Roquan Smith might be the best linebacker in the NFL right now. He's a unicorn. Jalen Carter's probably going to get Rookie of the Year. I mean, those guys are hard to replace. They don't come around often. I'll be answering this question next year about Brock Bowers. This is a once in a 20-year tight end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do think they're really solid. I'll tell you the name, and you see it coming up, man. Is Damon Wilson, and this 5-star. He was a huge recruiting battle with Georgia and Ohio State. And you saw him last week. I talked to some people at Ole Miss, and they were like, that dude is going to be a problem. And he blew by them a couple of times. So I think once the bye week, after, between Florida, Georgia comes in, and you look at this, the bye week, trying to get those young guys ready. I do think they're going to be better down the line. But to say, do they have a Trayvon Walker? Do they have a Jalen Carter? They don't. They got a bunch of really good players, but they don't have that alpha first rounder right now, in my opinion, up front. So yeah, that's been, look at Georgia, the last 4 games, the opening drive, they get up 7 points. They'd given up 14 points to Ole Miss last weekend until they made a couple adjustments there. So, that's some of the things that they've been able to stop the run. They got great linebacker play. And Jamon Dewis-Johnson is out. He's a starter. He's a captain. And then you insert this freshman, CJ Allen, and he was SEC Freshman of the Week, led the team in tackles, had sack, tackle for loss. So I think he's special, but this is the first time that he has stared down 108 that's not your friends. They're not on your visit list. You know what I mean? They're not getting tickets from you. So it's going to be a new atmosphere for him as well. So we'll see how he plays tomorrow. But Smile Munden and those guys, I think they've kind of done it. I think the one consistent thing, I try to talk to people that play Georgia, and Josh Heupel mentioned it in his press conference on Monday. Georgia is one of the best tackling teams in the country.
Yeah.
And they just don't give up many. Like if you get an 8-yard gain, it's 8. You're not going to break one and get 25. And that's been a key to being able to hold down some things when you look at that. So they're going to give up some plays, man. It's just you're going to give up some plays. I watched, like I said, I watched Tennessee's offense. Joe really, when he sets his feet, man, the ball is like a baseball coming out of his hand. When he throws that slant, you just can't guard that sometimes. Yeah. You're going to give up those plays. And I guarantee you they're going to take some shots. They're going to take some vertical shots on Georgia down the field, and Kenny hit those. So the run game, I think Georgia's been really good. I mean, they've been good, not great. They've given us the thing. I tell you what's hurt them has been the athletic quarterback. How much will Milton – he doesn't have to be, Cam Newton and run all over the place tomorrow. But how many times can he move the chains by picking up 3rd and 7 and getting 8? Yeah. Can he convert? Because Carson Beck does that once or twice a game. He's not going to get you for 30, but he'll get you twice a game where he'll just move the chains running. How many times will Joe Milton do that tomorrow would kind of be the key.
Well, it's funny you say that because that was my big question too. It's like one of the things that Stetson did really well that gave Tennessee problems the last 2 years is Stetson was so good with his legs. Stetson just caused all kinds of problems. And Tennessee is absolutely obliterated at linebacker right now. Aaron Carter, he's gone for the year. Keenan Pili, you haven't had all year, who was supposed to be that kind of spy to really solidify that linebacker room with Jeremy Banks gone. Aaron Beasley's at the Mike, it will not be in the Mike position. It's going to be Elijah Herring, who had a rough Saturday against Brady Cook and Cody Schrader. His eyes were not in the right place a lot of the time, and he looked extremely slow on tape. And they just got killed. Like there was no answer for it because Cody Schrader in the flat, you're going to have a linebacker on him. And then Tamarion McDonald, star, he was out. He got knocked out. So you're putting in a guy who had less than like 100 snaps at that point in Jordan Thomas. I don't know what the availability will look like there. But star is an important position because I think a lot of what Willie does involves what the star is able to do. And you just need that to be solid on Saturday. But I look at that and I'm like, okay, when they've gotten crushed this year, Tennessee's defense, it's quarterbacks on 3rd and 8 when they are able, because there was a play in the Mizzou game, I'm sure you saw, where Mizzou, Jackson Ross, who's been great punting, at the 1 yard line, and he just takes off and he gets the first down and extends the drive, and you're just like, it's a backbreaker. As Tennessee they haven't had an answer for that for 3 years, and I just wonder if Carson's that guy in the same vein that Stetson is.
He's not Brady Cook, because I watched it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
and the first drive of the game when they drove right down the field and scored on Georgia. First time he scrambled, I looked at the guy beside me. I said, that dude can damn roll. That dude can roll in person. So I've watched that play, and the exact play this morning. And my God, man, they had him pinned. They had him in the pocket. He spins, goes right back across the field and picks up the first down. So Carson Beck, that's not his game. But I tell you the one thing, man, and when you see him in person, you want to talk about a live arm and how from about 30 in, Carson Beck has been as accurate as I've ever seen. Now, he's had some problems with deep balls, and that's where Stetson would not miss. Yeah. Stetson Bennett did not miss a deep ball. I mean, this dude would drop it right in the basket.
Isn't that funny? Like Hooker and Stetson, who don't have the arm talent and the arm strength, they are just so devastating on deep balls. Then you have the beautiful balls in Milton and Beck, and they struggle for like just years with it makes no sense to me.
Very similar comparison, but I'm telling you, Carson Beck has been great. He has thrown in some tight windows. I mean, he's balls from about 30 in. You're like, damn, that is big league throws. But he has missed some balls this year. Like last week, that you see that play with the Ole Miss where they did the out and up, and he got the Ole Miss guy to bite. That ball was underthrown, or it's an easy touchdown.
Yeah,
Ladd McConkey had to stop. So if you want to get picky with some things, that's kind of where Carson has struggled a bit. He's not going to beat you with his legs, but with his mind, it's hard to confuse him right now. And I'm telling you, when you see him in person tomorrow and watch him warm up, I think that's what everybody sees the first time. Like, damn, this guy, his arm is freaking. It's got some juice to it.
There you go. What's interesting too is I think a lot of Georgia fans are probably expecting, because Brock Bowers is just great, like just the GOAT tight end, and they just don't make him like Brock Bowers anymore. But he hasn't done much in this series. In the first 2 games here, he's kind of been taken away a little bit by Tennessee. I don't know if it's just Tennessee taking him away or just the nature of how the game's going and just what Georgia is able to attack in other areas. But I look at this matchup and I just think if you look for all the different skill talent, all the different guys, because I think Georgia has the deepest wide receiver room in the SEC right now. When you look at all of the options that Georgia will have at their disposal against Tennessee and what they've got in the secondary and the linebacker room right now, I just think Dajun Edwards is the one who I would look at as like, he's probably going to have the best day. If you're a Georgia fan, look at Edwards because he is going to get, or should get targeted a bunch here at Ladd McConkey, because I don't think Tennessee is going to be able to handle Ladd in the slot with their current corner makeup. And he should be able to feast with a lot of attention on Brock Bowers. But Edwards, to me, is the X factor. If he is able to do whatever he wants in the flats and up the middle and everything else, Tennessee's in for a long day. But that's my pinpoint. Is that yours as well?
I picked Ladd McConkey. I picked Dajun Edwards because I feel like, how do you negate Tennessee's offense, because they stress a piss out of offense so much, and you got to get them on the sidelines. You can't, you give up some plays. So how do you do that? You run the football. And Milton, it looks like he's finally healthy for the first time this year. Had a good game last week. Hamstring issue, kind of coming back. But Dajun Edwards, Georgia has been a totally different team. They didn't have him the first 3 games. They couldn't run the ball. They had to move a wide receiver to tailback. They lost a 5-star running back in August, and Branson Robinson, who was going to be the starting running back. They lost him for 12 months. They didn't lose him for 6. They lost him for a whole year. And so you look at that. But when Dajun Edwards came in, I mean, this guy's been different. He's one of the most patient runners, runs through tackles. I know people don't like Gary Danielson, but I thought he hit it right on the spot when he said this guy doesn't go down with first contact. And he will turn 3 into 6. And that's how he ends up with 90, 95, 105 yards. At the end of the day, you're thinking, okay, he didn't have that explosive 25-yard gain, but he had a lot of 5 and 6 and 7, 8-yard runs. So I think Dajun Edwards is the key. I think that's for Georgia. They would like to run the football. They got Amarius Mims back last week. You got a lot of experienced guys. Tate Ratledge, somebody like Tate Ratledge just played 1,000 games. Cedric Van Pran, the center, he's played 1,000 games. You input these freshmen, and then this young guard, Dylan Fairchild, who was he's I think a redshirt sophomore. He was the heavyweight state champion in Georgia back-to-back, like 50-0, and he's just a mauler, man. They put him at guard, and they've been kind of different since they've inserted him into the lineup. So they've got their pieces. Is Georgia the better football team? Yes, Georgia's a football team. I just know that they are about to walk into an environment where you can't give Tennessee a crack. You can't give a cheap turnover. In Auburn, they're down 10. They turn the ball over on the very first play of the second half. You know what I mean? You do that tomorrow, and it's going to be one of those for 4 quarters on the edge of your couch type games for Georgia.
Yeah, because Tennessee is just if they get rolling, it's really hard to slow them down. If they are in a rhythm, if they are in a momentum, if Heupel is in his bag, that's a bad place to be in. Even if you're Georgia.
Here's the one thing I've said about this, and I'm not putting this one game on Heupel, but when I watched Alabama play zone against Tennessee last year, and they carved them up. I mean, carved Alabama up. I knew right. I said, I don't know if Georgia can beat Tennessee, but I can guarantee you Georgia will not play zone.
Yep.
And how they played them that day, and how they matched up. Heupel has got an entire tape. He had an entire offseason to see how Georgia was going to play him. And some other people tried to copy that, but they didn't have the personnel Georgia did. And also, you're playing at home. So now you come back to Knoxville. What's going to be your counterpunch? It's almost like seeing a pitcher for the first time.
Yeah.
You saw him for 9 innings. All right, the next time we play him, this is what we're going to do. So you want to see what Tennessee is going to do this time. Now they've had a whole year to prepare, because Georgia's not changing what they're going to do. They're going to do a lot of the same things they did. That's just who they are. So what's going to be the kind of counterpunch from Heupel tomorrow?
I don't know, but I'm excited no matter what, because I think anyone who sees a blowout on either side, I think, will be mistaken. I think this is actually going to be a close game into the fourth quarter, is my guess.
I've been up there too many times. Been up there too many times and seen that atmosphere and know what that rivalry is about. I got a lot of close Tennessee friends.
Yeah.
And they have circled this one since they've been on me since Easter about this one. So I can tell you, I know what that environment's going to be like. It's going to be a great college football environment. I wish I could go I got some TV to do tonight in Atlanta with high school football, or I'd maybe be cracking a few on the river tonight. That's going to be a great atmosphere down there tonight.
There you go. Rapid fire here, because I'm curious on the recruiting front, Rusty. Obviously, I think one of the things that I talk with Tennessee fans who sometimes get frustrated with like recruiting and stuff like that, where I'm like, look, man, the majority of Tennessee recruits have to come from Georgia. It's Georgia high school football. 7A is just a totally different animal with all the Atlanta area high schools, and then the powerhouses of the Colquitts of the world in South Georgia getting their own classification or getting their own region. And it's just different. And you are going to have to win some of those battles. You're going to have to go in and fight. And I think Tennessee fans right now are kind of nervous about where Kam Mikell is going to end up, the Statesboro standout. He is trying to make it in, I believe, this weekend for Tennessee, Georgia. We'll see if that ends up happening. But what do you make of like the kind of storyline around Kam being that like the reason Georgia wasn't on was, or maybe Georgia was on the outside looking in for him for months, was they wanted him to play defense and he sees himself as a receiver. So that gave Tennessee an advantage. How much of you think is real there? And do you think, as of right now, Georgia is the leader for Kam, or do you think Tennessee's still in a good spot?
I think Georgia, like today, I probably would pick Georgia. Now, let me rephrase that. Let me say that as he just got off Georgia's campus.
Yeah.
Now, if he makes it to Knoxville this weekend, that's certainly a big deal, and that's Tennessee's opportunity to say, hey, because if he makes it to Knoxville this weekend, I guess they would get the last visit before his decision.
Yeah, I think it's the 23rd, right? Is what he announced.
Yeah, so he's next week. So if he's got a playoff game tonight, and they play tonight on the road, I believe. So that's plenty of time to get to Knoxville, those type of things. So if he makes it to Knoxville this weekend, that's certainly a plus for Tennessee. I don't think this thing is over. He's not a silent commit to Georgia. I'm not sitting here with a story ready to go, anything like that. I think Georgia had a very good visit with him last weekend and his family. They have assured him that he can play wide receiver if that's what he wants to choose. Be an athlete. He can play both ways, but he's playing quarterback for his team now. They just moved him. He's playing Wildcat quarterback, and they took off. So, I think Georgia is still recruiting him to just be an athlete. Maybe come do what Travis Hunter does and play both ways. So, I don't think it's over. I think there's a lot. I do think I'm confident it's Georgia and Tennessee. I know Colorado had a good job with him. Get him out there, but I think it's Tennessee or Georgia. And what I do is my old good buddy Barton Simmons, who's at Vanderbilt now, he used to just text me and say, hey, follow the visits. Follow the visits. You know what I mean? So see who makes up tomorrow, and we'll follow, all the recruiting guys there and see what the news is out of that. But if he doesn't make it, I would probably feel better about Georgia still. But if he gets to Knoxville, certainly it's going to be a great environment, and they're going to sit him down and try to reassure him that, hey, this is why I've been recruiting you at this position, and here's what we can do. I'll tell you this, Mike Matthews, super freak. But more importantly,
at my alma mater over here, Mike Matthews, Parkview alumni. Look, they make them different. Jeff Rancourt, Mike Matthews, they just make them different over there, Rusty.
I'm going to tell you, Mike Matthews is one of the best kids I've ever covered. Like one of the best. Oh, man, you talking about fantastic. Great family, great kid. I'm talking great kid. This would be one of those that goes to Knoxville, and he will be like the face of your program type kid. I mean, this guy is legit. He's a damn competitor, but he is super polished kid off the field, comes from a great family. That is an absolute monster get. That was a monster win. Tennessee fans, that's a big deal, but you don't kind of understand the impact. And I do. I've been doing this long, what that guy's going to be in 2 or 3 years and what he's going to mean to that team and that program.
So you think it's one that Georgia's like, ooh, you let this kid get out of state, that this stuff.
They trust me. They try. I think it's just one of those deals where Tennessee did a great job with him and saying, look, this is what we do wide receiver wise. And it's funny because Georgia for so long, man, they don't throw the ball to tight ends. They don't throw. They couldn't get a tight end.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they get a couple of tight ends, and the kids start getting drafted. And now everybody says you don't throw the wide receivers. So they've been having trouble. You know what I mean? But they've got Brock Bowers. I mean, they got Superman. You know what I mean? So I get it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. We'll see, because it's just one of those tough offenses for freshmen don't really play in Heupel's scheme, because I think it's a lot of you have to make these adjustments on the fly. These receivers, they have to determine their route when they're out there, and it's how the defense lines up. It's tough.
He's smart, man.
Yeah.
He'll be there. Shit, he'll be there in 3 weeks.
Yeah.
4 weeks. You know what I mean? You give Mike Matthews 8 months, they better get him ready, because he's a different dude now.
Well, you got me ready to run through a brick wall. Nico Yamaliava, we got Mike Matthews in the fold. Offense is going to be pretty scary next year.
Yeah, I'm interested. I wish they'd play Nico more. I want to see him. Everybody I've talked to about him, out in California, and my good Dad Simmons, everybody kind of raves about him, and you're excited to see the next guy and see what he can do. But I kind of understand where they are right now with Joe and trying to finish this thing off with him.
I just think they're just banged up, and they're just trying to get through this season. Like, I think that at this point, they're just like, let's not destroy some confidence. Let's not, like, you lost to me, dude. Brew McCoy's gone. I mean, I don't know. I think this is a survive in advance, get to 9-3, whatever it is, get to win a bowl win, 10-3, whatever, and just get to next year. Because I think everyone saw this as a gap year coming into Tennessee. Rusty, go subscribe to DawgsHQ and on 3 today. If you have not already done so, listen to Rusty. How many days a week are you on with the Steakhouse on 99?
I'm on Wednesday, 9 to 11. That's super fun. Have a great time there. Do Fox 5 Atlanta on Saturday mornings. Do a Georgia show there, and having fun with it, man, right now. But I need a break. I need to finish these things off and get this SEC championship game and breathe for 1 second and get ready for hopefully a playoff run for Georgia. So we'll see what happens.
Well, you're almost there, Rusty. You're almost there. Well, thank you as always, and for making the time. This was great, and we'll have to do this again soon.
Yeah, man. I talked to my good buddy Austin Price. I said, hey, I'm gonna be on Chase's show. He goes, look, you get on there, you get to talk wrestling, Disney, and all that good stuff. So
Austin's funny, man. That's funny.
You want to have me on about wrestling later on next time. I'll have to get you.
We go all over the place. And with Hubs, I get Andy Griffith and Matlock talk. You never know where it's going to go week to week. So when we get more time, we'll bounce around a little bit. Rusty, thank you so much, and talk to you soon.
Thanks, Chase.